We actually Superman before our shows, usually on stage, literally right before we're going to play. And luckily we were able to sneak that in to Letterman because we had about 5 seconds extra when we had practiced a song before we came to Letterman. So we said we have to do that because it grounds us, and scientifically it actually does get everything moving to a balanced, conscious state to be able to do your best and kind of wake up.
And that explains why we had our hands up like, oh, that's what we do before every show.
We call it Superman.
Yeah, it's basically just stretching and yelling for about 5 to 10 seconds.
Yes, big metalhead.
Big punk fan.
Yeah.
I like rancheras, cumbias, I like all that stuff.
John's a big drum and bass head.
Yeah, I like a lot of stuff, a lot of different stuff. Yeah, that's a hard one. I like a lot of Latin music too. We would definitely win.
I mean, we would.
Look at
this guy.
I would let them win.
Actually,
I'd let them win.
Sharon used to work for a prison, so I'm going to say Sharon, she'd win. They'd win. I don't want to go to jail. Well, he was just really nice.
He was encouraging. He said
really
he thought we did really well and good show and everything, and he seemed genuine about it.
One thing he was surprised about, because I remember he asked somebody, he was like, so how many of those songs are original?
Oh yeah.
We were like, all of them. And then he was pretty impressed.
Yeah, him and the whole band were just very, very nice guys.
Yeah.
Great guys. We really enjoyed playing with them. It was originally something that Pat wrote, like just on an iPad and GarageBand, and so he had the basic groove down and the chords down, and then we just built it from there. And that's kind of how a lot of the songs come together. Is one of us comes just randomly comes up with some idea for chord progression, and then we just bring it to the band, and then all 10 of us say, well, why don't we make this chord that chord, or put this part over here instead, and that's just it. That's what ends up happening.
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
songwriting
to build on that. I'm not sure if you're asking about Make Some Room, the entire EP, or just the song itself.
The EP.
Okay, so it definitely took some years. I mean, the lyrics to Give Her I wrote about 10 years ago, and I just never had a song to put them to. Every time I would try to put them to something, it never really worked. And one night at rehearsal, Pat, our keyboard player, was just kind of, playing this progression over and over again. He was like, holy shit, just please keep doing that. Please keep looping it. I have something. As for Make Some Room, it was the same thing over again. He kept showing us this chord progression, and at first I didn't really like it. Like I didn't like it, and our drummer sent me this chorus idea that I didn't like even more, mainly because I thought it was way too high for me to do. And he really believed in it. He's like, you can do it. But if you were to actually listen to the original demos, it almost sounds like he's doing like Muppet voice, because he's singing so high. He's like, no, you can do this. Can't you see? And I'm like, what is this? And when we brought it back to rehearsal, I had it in my mind. I was like, okay, well, let me work on this verse before I go trying this other part. And our bass player just kind of had this like old school kind of like Motown groove.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I was like, okay, all right. I'm looking at Kevin, and Kevin's all irritated because we started practice really early, and he hadn't eaten dinner yet. And all I remember thinking was, come on, let me cook for you, baby. And I kept repeating that in my brain. And he's like, I'm going to leave. And he left and went and got food. And I just kept writing on top of that line over and over again. And I tried to originally get away without singing Nick's chorus part. But he's like, hey, no, we need to try that chorus part now. We just spent 2 hours, on this verse. But it ended up just becoming this like lovely blend. And the same thing with the other 2 songs, we played them probably for about 2 years solid just at shows before we were able to finally go into the studio and record them. And when we finally went in, it just happened so naturally. It kind of felt like, you know, training for like a marathon, or, you know, like, you know, just prepping for like a Thanksgiving dinner or something. You know, you know what you need. You've prepped, you've got everything in front of you. It's more so, okay, I have a very limited amount of time to get this thing done. Can we do this? And we tried so many different mediums, from going to different studios to trying to record it ourselves. And we finally ended up at Church House Studios in Austin, Texas. And the way he presented it to us, Dave Boyle is the name of the engineer, was that we needed to do it like they did back in the day and record it live. No tracking, none of that stuff, to catch the vibe that we have at our live shows. And some of the guys were a little hesitant because, you know, there's so many individual engineers in the band, but we trusted him and ended up producing what we feel, you know, is this really beautiful piece of work.
And the way we like to record.
Yes.
We realized we function well in that setting.
Yeah.
Just live, like we're going to take it, everyone play it once, not a lot of track this, track this, track this. It keeps the energy. Especially for soulful music. I mean, it's, you know, I can't imagine doing it all in separates, you know.
The more important question is, are you an emotional person? And how do you handle mixed levels of flatulence?
Well, something that my mother just told me on Facebook was, hi Mom, she said, I'm so proud of you for sticking to your dream through everything you've gone through, and I'm just so proud of you. This happened after the Letterman thing, but still it's really nice to hear that, and I think that sticking true to it, you can't go wrong. You'll always be successful if you keep pushing it. I think
work hard though.
You will.
Yeah.
Some form.
Hard work, patience.
Yeah.
Great things will come.
What my one of my good friends told me recently was, one of the biggest things that make successful people who they are is they keep going, even though when they start they might not be the best. Eventually, people around you are going to fall off and they're going to give up, or life's just going to happen to them. But if you can somehow find a way to keep working at what it is that you're trying to do, eventually it'll happen. It might not be your turn within the first 5 years of trying it, the first 10 years, first 20 years. But I think collectively, all 10 of us, that's what we all had in common, is that, you know, we all had this dream and we all had these gifts and talent, but we never really were given the opportunity to really succeed because, you know, we were just never put in the right places. But, you know, even
with the right people.
Or with the right people. And even though that was the case, we were all had so much love for the music that, you know, we'd still keep going. Sure. We just wouldn't be doing it on such a public forum. But when we all became a group, it just made so much more sense because everything just started to happen. And I know that people on the outside, it probably seems like, oh, you know, they just got together in 5 minutes and this is working. Like, we all knew each other for about probably 10 years before, just from being in other bands and hearing about each other. Mm-hmm. But we just never had time to work with each other until about 4 years ago. And then once that happened.
So yeah, when Adam called me, he's like, hey, do you want to work? I've got with Patrick, we're thinking about doing this thing. And I was like, yeah, I mean, because these are people playing other bands with, and they're all great musicians. And then they, you know, brought in, talk about Ray and Kam. And I was like, man, she's amazing. It'd be awesome. Yeah. So we were stoked to work with each other from other projects. So like, it's kind of like this, I don't want to, it's kind of like, you know, my view in my head, I was like, all these all-star musicians, and I'm getting to join and do this thing. So I was like, heck yeah, let's do it. You know.
One of my fondest memories of when the band first started was our keyboard player, Pat, called me and he's like, hey, are you still singing? Do you have a band right now? I was like, no, you know, I'm just working, whatever. And he's like, hey, well, me and Adam are starting a band. And I'm like, Adam Castaneda, the bass player. The first time I saw Adam play bass was in 2006 at Fitzgerald's in Houston. And I was in probably my second band ever. And I was like, that's what bass is supposed to sound like. That is, I felt so bad because I remember telling my bass player, why aren't you doing that? Can you make that sound? He's like, what? No, I play bass. We all play bass. I was like, no, it sounds like this. And we had all had like a little one-off band called The Pocket. I think we had maybe 4 shows over 5 years, but it just never really became anything. But when Pat called me and he said Adam was in the band, I was like, I don't even care what it is. I'm coming to rehearsal.
That's all
I'll be there.
Yeah.
He didn't mention all the others, though.
Seemed like a fun extracurricular thing to do with these musicians.
Yeah.
Get together and we weren't doing our other projects, and it was like, let's do this more. This is nice.
Yeah,
I like playing
it really didn't seem like we were gonna do many shows. I thought it was gonna be like the other thing where we just get together once every couple of months and
Yeah.
go back to our lives. But I think we all kind of got a little obsessed with it.